Cloud. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Coaching Roundtable. And today we're going to talk about the art of saying goodbye. So if you wonder how to write the text message, or you wonder how to tell a colleague, I got a pink slip, I don't work here anymore, or I found a new job, but it's been great working with you, we're going to go over all of that today. Jonathan, it's good to see you. How are things in sunny California?
It is great to see you, Mirna, Dean. Um, it is not that sunny right now, but it is a beautiful day. So that's
It's a kind of tornado season lately and thunderstorms, all kinds of weather activity. So, but not in California. So, how about for you, Dean? Are we in tornado season where you are?
Well, I mean, I live in Indiana, so anytime between the end of March and say the first time it snows, it could be tornado season. But today it is very sunny and very green and very mild.
Hmm.
I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I said, I live in a weird place because if you looked out the window, it's very bucolic. There are horses
Mhm.
across the street, cattle everywhere you look.
Yeah.
But if you go 20 minutes in the wrong direction, because I live in central Indiana, Indianapolis has grown so much that 20 minutes in the wrong direction, and you're in a very urban environment. And then
Yeah.
20 minutes in the other direction, you're in as rural, almost as rural as you can imagine. And so that makes the weather makes everything feel different then, right?
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
better, whichever environment you're in, it's always better to be there on a beautiful day.
I live in a suburban cul-de-sac
Hmm.
in the northern territories above Austin, Texas. And this morning, when I put out it was my son's old key dish. When he would come in through the door, he'd put his keys and wallet by the front door so we would always know where they were. So, of course, he lives in Vietnam and doesn't need a key dish in my house anymore. So, I feed squirrels and birds. I put seed in there. And as I was feeding the squirrel and the birds this morning, there was a bunny who hopped across the lawn. And I thought, well, welcome spring. There's a bunny hopping across the lawn in a suburban cul-de-sac. So, yeah, spring has sprung and it's good to see you guys. And I read that Oracle gave 30,000 pink slips to people 3 weeks ago at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning. 30,000 people got the email, you're no longer employed here. Thanks for playing. And their computers were shut off. So the art of saying goodbye at work, I've been laid off, or the survivor's guilt of not being one of the ones that was laid off. We have a lot of things we can talk about, the art of how to say goodbye. So let's jump in real quick to our amazing PowerPoint. Okay, let's see. I have it set up. I thought I had it set up. Here we go. There it is. 3 tries, and we have it.
perfect.
Let's see if it wants to present. So, the art of saying goodbye. Here's someone who's got some kind of, looks like airline ready suitcase and a duffel bag and a hat. And he's waiting for the cab, the bus, the Uber, his friend to pick him up and take him to the airport. He's saying goodbye somehow. It looks like physically. So, okay. Here's SpongeBob helping us out. Goodbye, everyone. I will remember you all in therapy. So we're going to have these areas of topic of conversation as our coaches help people with how to say goodbye. You can mention how you arrived at that decision or not, just that you have arrived at the decision to say goodbye. Maybe it's about timing, maybe it's about your goals. You can also express gratitude. In the show notes, we have a lot of text messages that are samples of how to text someone, goodbye, whether you're breaking up with them or you enjoyed working with them, or you've accepted an offer in another city, whatever it is. Some people prefer text messages today. Most of them include some mention of gratitude. It was great to work with you, or thank you for your leadership on this team, or I learned a lot working here, or I enjoyed our time together. Maybe a memory, I'll always remember that company picnic where I got to, knock you out into the dunk tank or whatever that is. And then you might talk about, we might both be thriving in different futures. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about when it's time to say goodbye and different categories of people we say goodbye to. So, oops, I usually save the memes for later. So we'll come back to the memes. But who would like to go first and kind of chat about the art of saying goodbye? I know you have some thoughts, Dean. Should we start with your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to be I'm going to take a sort of a counterintuitive approach
Hmm.
that might surprise you. Um,
Really?
I think most goodbyes are probably pretty unnecessary.
Hmm.
Oh, you're a fan of the Irish goodbye? Just get up and leave?
Yeah, actually, yes. Um, but so you just said 30,000 people got an email at 6 o'clock in the morning.
At Oracle, yes, 3 weeks ago.
There's no goodbying there. I mean, maybe if you had a friend who worked with you, you'd want to email that person or text that person.
Yeah, you want to know, did you get, nobody knows who the other 29,000 are, right? I
Right.
mean, did you get caught up in the layoff or is it just me?
But generally, none of that makes any difference. Still, the basic fact is you lost your job,
Mhm.
and whoever else lost their jobs is um, not long term going to change your situation, right? So unless
Mhm.
you have a personal relationship with someone there, the company, what they thought of, their opinion of you was someone who's so valuable they would email you an automated mass email at 6 in the morning and never hear from you again. And so I think what we have to do is we have to understand that that kind of corporatization sets the model for most relationships in our certainly in our country, right?
Mhm.
And that we have we have many avenues of consumer society that essentially teach us that relationships exist essentially to serve you almost like an employee, right? If you're dating someone, that's you're there for what you can get. They're there for what they can get. It's transactional, and no, and it could end at any moment at will of either person, right? And so I just think if we want to live in that kind of system, we just have to accept that there's no way to say a goodbye that's going to change the system, right? We have to understand that if we're going to approach relationships in a utilitarian, consumeristic, transactional way, that I guess the right goodbye is to say, thank you, you served your purpose.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh my goodness.
But
Well,
that,
but so you might say that the current sort of construct of society right now lends itself to that, but you wouldn't do that personally, wouldn't you? Isn't it a real person who was a coworker or a real person that you dated and now you don't want to date them anymore? So wouldn't you tell not a system or a computer or a company, but you would tell a real person goodbye?
yes, but I think in those cases, so this is why I'm saying most goodbyes are unnecessary. One, because either you're in a transactional relationship, right? Or two, you're in a relationship with another human being whom you realize to be a subject with their own feelings, experience, et cetera, will, and you're not transactional. And
Mhm.
so in that case, I think that we have generally a an obligation to seek to preserve the relationship prior to saying goodbye. And if
Hmm.
we seek to preserve the relationship, then most goodbyes in that situation are also unnecessary.
Huh. Well, that's
Right?
an interesting take. I know one of the examples on how to say goodbye to friends, and maybe you can jump in on this, Jonathan. And so they're like, why does a friendship end? Like sometimes when you break up with someone or you're leaving, people say, why? Like, how did you decide to leave? Well, my husband got a job in a different city, so we're relocating. Okay. But one of the examples, and I think this is a common one today, is, you know, uh, my politics are very important to me, and we don't align politically. And so I just think it's better if we're not friends.
Mm.
I mean, it's like who you voted for sometimes is a condition of friendship, which is weird today, but also common today. Or, I'm going to spend more time with my family. My knees blown out, so I can't be in the softball league anymore. Whatever it is, you can just sort of say, because people who you've been interacting with want to know, did I do something to offend you? Why, is this a rejection of me? No, my knee blew out. Oh, okay. It's about your knee. It's not about you don't want to play on a team with me on it anymore. So I think people have questions, but Jonathan, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah. So lack of perspective when it comes to like goodbyes, it plays a huge role because
Mhm,
like I understand it can be like, let's say, hard, for example, to like say goodbye or let go, or like a
mhm,
friendship that
mhm,
it's been there from like childhood, let's say, and then you
mhm,
start growing up, and you have to say goodbye, right? So
mhm,
sometimes what worked in the past for you, and it doesn't have to be only like relationships, it can be many other like things. But sometimes what worked in the past might not be good for you going forward.
mhm,
So
mhm,
recognizing that it's good. Also, like what I meant by perspective, I think most humans lose perspective when it comes to like their whole universe. It becomes like so tiny
mhm,
when it comes to like relationships, like
mhm,
friendships, for example.
mhm,
Like you came to this world from who knows where to have
mhm,
this human experience. You
mhm,
are here. Life is so short, like it's extremely short, and you're
mhm,
gonna spend it like thinking or like feeling sad about one person or like a job that you can. I mean, I understand it's hard to get to be laid off, for example, but
mhm,
like there's so many options out there. So I
mhm,
think like one of the first things to take care of is perspective, like putting
mhm,
yourself into like a bigger perspective, like
mhm,
okay, this is horrible what's happening, but like hey, like there's so much out there to explore.
mhm.
So lack of perspective, it's a huge thing.
I think one of the suggestions in the how to, realign a friendship or step away from a friendship, one of the recommendations in the show notes was to gradually create more space, like to stop being available or slow down about returning calls or text messages, and maybe they'll get the hint, For some people, that non-confrontational style is what's best. And then if they get sort of pursued about, I know we haven't been spending much time together, is that kind of deliberate, or whatever's going on? So, I think people who are involved in personal growth or development or are thrust into an opportunity to grow, they're through a breakup or a layoff, or, you've moved to a new town and now you get to try to make new friends and you haven't made a new friend in 5 years. So, when you're forced into growth a little bit, some of these tools, the coaches can provide, can be helpful. But I also think, Dean, you bring up a good point about in the relationship where the advice that's talked about, there's a determination. Is this relationship transactional, as you say? Is this relationship casual? Or, they have something called future faking, where, and typically it's positioned this way. I don't know if it's actually this way. I think it probably happens equally on both sides, but it's positioned that a man would suggest one day you'll get married, one day he'll propose and a year later you'll get married and start a family or whatever. You're faking a future and kind of holding that carrot out there,
Mm.
but he actually has no intention. He's biding his time until he gets a better offer. And women do the same thing. They stay with a boyfriend, they get a better offer, and they break up and move on. So I think understanding, where you are in a relationship, then you can focus on, do I want to disentangle myself from this, or is this serving me? Do we have a future together, or we don't even want a future together? We want to hang out, and be friends with benefits for another 6 months and then start over in a new year with something else. So, Dean, I think kind of understanding what kind of relationship are you in, a nameless, faceless corporation who doesn't care and will fire you Monday morning at 6 o'clock and 29,000 other people, or someone you've worked with for 5 years on a team and you've been close, but you've just decided you're going to take this promotion that's been offered at another company and you actually have a relationship with the owner or your boss or your coworker. Do you have
So
some thoughts?
yeah, so let me clarify. When we talk about how to say goodbye, right?
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
assuming that means ending the relationship, but that's not necessarily the case. So if you work with
Right.
someone on a team and you just go take another job, there's no there's no need to end the relationship there. You just say, I'm going to be busy working at the other place, but maybe once a month we can still get together. I mean,
Right.
there's a
There's a
big
lot of language around let's stay in touch kind of
yes,
thing.
and
Mhm,
so especially, if you got four different social media apps on your phone and you're connected there.
mhm,
There's really it's one thing to say goodbye in the sense that our current situation is changing. I'm leaving. I'm taking another job. There's
mhm,
another sense in which you're saying goodbye means ending the relationship.
mhm,
And so I just think, yeah, so yeah, obviously it makes a difference what the context is.
mhm,
But in terms of like actually ending relationships, I think culturally we are, like I said, very much taught to think of our relationships as transactional.
mhm,
And so, you get the breakup, some woman's going to break up with her boyfriend, whatever.
mhm,
And we are really trained to only think of that in terms of, well, what is working for me? Is he bringing what I need? Blah, blah, blah.
mhm, mhm,
But in fact, relationships, especially if you're in them for a while,
mhm,
they also accrue obligations. And
mhm,
and in our culture, all of our relationship discussion is about the transactional part. What's in it for me? Is this working for me? This just isn't work. This just feels off. This doesn't feel like a fit, right? And we take that as normative without any
mhm,
discussion of what are the obligations that you have accrued.
mhm,
So, like just in the situation where a woman's breaking up with her boyfriend, well, let's say they've been together for, I don't know, a while, 2 years or more.
mhm, mhm,
Over that time, he's invested an enormous amount of resources in her, which she has gladly accepted, and vice versa, right? I mean, it
mhm,
could be a
mhm,
man.
mhm,
But the accepting of those resources in creates a kind of obligation because he gave those to her in trust that he would receive back.
mhm.
And but what we have is a culture that just says, end the relationship, take all the resources and run. And I just think
Well, I
um,
wouldn't be in a relationship with someone who views relationships in that way. I mean,
if
I
you
think
knew
that's
that
one
they
of the
were
filters, right?
sure,
About what
but
kind
that
of relationship was it? And, I think to your transactional nature of common modern relationships today, sometimes you find out it was transactional in a breakup.
right,
Like we're breaking up because you want nicer dinners out, because you want weekends in Miami. I mean, we're breaking up because this new friend you made has a better class of boyfriend and it's time for you to upgrade. I mean,
right,
I didn't know I was in a transactional thing until you're breaking up with me.
sure, right, right. That's why it's hard to vet for. It's hard to filter
Mhm,
out, right? Because
mhm,
sometimes you don't know because the
mhm.
person's not particularly
Honest.
upfront and honest, right?
Yeah, they're not
Um,
honest. Yeah.
So, do we want to talk about like, well, so let me say this. So, I think if you're going to break up with someone,
Mhm,
it needs to be almost immediate, right? That healthy breakups don't happen after 3 years.
Oh,
They
they
happen
don't
for
drag
3 days.
on. Mhm.
And because of exactly what I said, right? Where the deeper you get entangled with someone, the more resources you accept from that person, the higher their reasonable expectation of return on that, and the higher your level of obligation to one another.
I think if you're dating for marriage, that's true. I think if you're dating casually, and I think that's part of the conversation, in your coaching, Dean, you underscore honesty,
Hmm.
especially self-honesty.
Hmm.
What are you actually looking for? And I think there's less of that going around than maybe we would prefer. Self-honesty, people
Hmm.
who can reflect and say, this is the impression I've given. I'm future faking this person. And I'm really just hanging out until I get a better offer, or because I don't like to be alone, or because I was bored, or because the only one in my friend group that didn't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And so I want, to keep up with everybody else. And
Hmm.
so, that takes some self-reflection and some personal honesty, right? To admit, oh, I'm not really with this person. It's better than being alone.
Hmm.
Jonathan, do you have some thoughts about
Yeah,
people who say, I'm going to hang in here until I get a better offer, male or female?
yeah. Sometimes all we need is just a little encouragement. Sometimes also, because deep
Mm,
down we know if, like, for example, somebody that I like the way Dean is conscious about relationships being transactional,
mm, mhm,
because they kind of are, which, like, the way we transact with, like, the trees, when we breathe in, they breathe what we exhale,
mhm.
right?
Right,
So
right.
it's a transactional
Mhm.
planet. But deep down, we understand, like, when something is really, really off, we can feel it, and sometimes all we need is, like, um, encouragement, because yes, to be dragging something for like years and years is not healthy for you and is not fair for the other person. Now, I'll, something that I just came to my mind, saying goodbye, sometimes it doesn't have to be to something like physical, like a
Mhm,
relationship. It
mhm,
can be saying a goodbye to, like, what you are carrying from the past. So a
mhm,
lot of humans, even they carry so much, like,
mhm,
like memories that are negative towards them,
mhm,
and they
mhm,
replay them every,
mhm,
like, so often. So replaying memories from the past that are going to put you in a state, in a vibrational state that is
mhm,
low, is is not a good idea. And most humans do it. They don't know how to say or how to not carry those. Now somebody's gonna ask, well, how do I let go of those things?
mhm,
And the answer is, there's actually nothing to let go or nothing to say goodbye to, because it's not here. Like right
mhm.
now, your ex-husband or ex-wife is not there with you, making
Right,
you
right.
feel horrible. It's just your memory. You're carrying those memories, and
Mhm,
the solution is, instead of having bad memories, we're
mhm,
just so bad at using our imagination that we can just replay. It takes the same amount of energy to play a bad memory from 10 years ago.
mhm,
It takes the same amount of energy to play a good memory that you had a couple months ago, or like
mhm,
5 years ago. And you,
mhm,
so, like, keeping or being responsible with our
mhm,
own thoughts and emotions, it will help so that in the going forward, you don't attract those kinds of relationships back into your life, or like those kinds of feelings. Because
mhm,
if we don't take care of those, like, now, the
mhm.
future is not going to be any different. So we don't want that. So it's better to take care of it in as you are right now, in the moment.
I think the passage of time is really important there. It's a key about who you are now, maybe versus who you were when you got together.
Yes, because
what your
that
expectations were 5 years ago when you got together.
and that happens
Mm-hmm.
sometimes either the man is gonna grow emotionally or some spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
and the woman is gonna be like, I cannot connect with you no more, or vice versa. Like the
Mm-hmm.
woman might grow spiritually and the man might be totally clueless, which is what I've seen happen a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know? So but that also how to take care of that is like in the present. um,
Yes.
you have to be also we have to be less selfish in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
because if you really want a relationship to work, and anybody that has had a relationship will know this, if
Mm-hmm.
you really want it to work, your expectations have to drop. I will recommend to like zero. uh,
Mm-hmm.
so like if you give resources,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, start thinking about it as like give like charity, you know, or
Mm.
like
Right. There's no return on
there is
investment.
no return on investment. Same
Mhm.
with love. I mean,
Well,
it might
yeah, I was going to say for women, one of the question marks about future faking and return on investment is her window of fertility. And so she may say, well, we're going to get married and start a family. And 3 years have gone by, and I've only got 3 or 4 years left. So I kind of have to know, are we actually going to do this? Or I may not be able to. Or it'll cost me $50,000 in IVF treatments to have a child because you couldn't make up your mind. Or
yeah.
I'm not quite good enough to take across the finish line and get married and start a family. So, yeah, I think there's that time investment, even though it's different, maybe for men and women. And then telling the truth about your expectations. And, is this still a fit now? Do I want more of this? Because we find people go through bouts of depression or periods of unemployment, or their parents have died and it hits them really hard and they can't seem to bounce back, or
Mhm.
whatever that looks like. And, you know, having to know if you were married and you're not married now, you would have to be navigating this together. But you're not married, so are you invested enough to navigate this together, or are you just recognizing you're not invested enough to navigate the alcoholism or the depression or the cancer diagnosis or whatever it may be, some difficulty that's come into, a romantic partner's life. And so, yeah, I think, understanding where you stand sometimes is really helpful. But I think too about people that I've counseled about saying goodbye to people at work. People have really been a mentor to them or really helped them. You know, very rare do you stay in touch, but sometimes you can. And you can honor the role that they played in your life while you grew and got your first manager job or executive job or whatever that looks like. But also, there are people who are in middle management and they literally can't break through to the next level. Someone
Mm.
has to die or retire or quit,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or you have to open a new plant in Cincinnati. Like there's no moving up for like 5 or 10 years. So if you want to move up, you have to leave.
Yeah.
And they can feel like you've betrayed these people that invested time and resources in training you. At the same time, you get to do better for your family by going and finding that director level job someplace else that needs your skills and will pay you $50,000 more a year. So you can put your kid in private school or whatever it is your goals are. Maybe they can't be achieved where you are. And that doesn't mean you don't appreciate the time you've spent there, but you're now stopped and you want to keep growing and
And I
keep
think that's when
sleeping.
the perspective comes into play, because
Mhm,
saying goodbye to a corporation like that, for example,
mhm,
if you live, putting into perspective, like that's what I mean, like big picture. You think
mhm,
you're so, let's say you're an executive or like a manager of like a place,
mhm,
and there's no more room to go.
mhm, mhm,
You're what I've seen is usually this in these cases, the mentality is like, if I leave, everything is going to, this company is going to suffer. The
mhm,
reality is like, if you leave, there's 10 guys already waiting for that position, and they will be glad that you left. So like you will be
mhm,
helping somebody else. Like
mhm.
is you that's what I meant by perspective. Don't
Yeah.
yeah.
I learned that the hard way one time. I was laid off during a tech layoff. And the first thought to me was, who's going to finish these projects I'm in the middle of? And then it's like, nobody. They've taken the team from 25 people to like four. And three of them are owners in the company and someone to answer the phone. This is what they've slashed everybody. And so I found great importance in the work I was doing, and it's not more important than laying off all the staff because they can't meet payroll anymore. But yeah, you get those reality checks sometimes about how important you think this is compared to what the reality is right now.
Yeah.
And it can be the marketplace or it can be the relationship or, whatever that looks like. But sometimes you get a reality check and then you realize, okay, well, it's time to say goodbye about that. So, and I think there are ways to say goodbye that are healthy. And I think, if you've been self-reflective and you can express these were good memories, I'm grateful, I've appreciated this, I'm moving in another direction, whatever that is. And I think sometimes you don't have to give a reason why. It really depends on who you are and what the situation is. But I think, especially in a time where people aren't even willing to get on the phone with you, they want to text you. Couldn't this happen with a text? Couldn't this happen with an email? Where other people are like, are you trying to break up with me on a text message? You are such a tacky so and so. Like, have some courage. Tell me to my face. So yeah, the standards are a little bit all over the place, maybe depending the generation you're in. But yeah, I think if people can be a little bit self-reflective about where am I in whatever this professional relationship is or personal relationship is, friendship is, whatever that looks like. And then how do I, part politely, civilly. What is the civil way to do that? So, Dean, do you have some final thoughts about the art of how to say goodbye?
It's interesting. I think this probably is much more common in your purview than in mine, where to me, I've never been in a position where my work for a corporation mattered outside of the 9 to 5 at all. Like that's
Mm,
never been a place where I've invested my identity, but I guess there are people who do that sort of thing. Right. So that's so when I speak about saying goodbye at work, I don't want to sound a little flippant. It's just coming
mhm,
um from a perspective that just doesn't have any experience with investing your identity in that, right?
mhm, mhm,
I think in terms of actually ending um non-work relationships, whether I think one of the reasons why people are so quick to end relationships now is that most people have no training or skill or tolerance for negotiating anything. And they don't know how to negotiate in relationships for what they want. And so it just becomes easier to say, well, I'm out of here and I'll just go find someone who naturally gives me everything I want
mhm,
rather than having to make myself vulnerable and go through the sometimes painful um, process of actually negotiating out with someone a relationship that works. And
mhm,
so when you have people who can't relate, can't negotiate, but who also are have an easy way to break up over text, you're just going to get a lot more breakups. The problem with that is that it's ultimately leads to loneliness because you end up throwing away relationships that could have been just fine for you.
mhm, mhm,
Um, So so I think in terms of ending relationships, I would say, well, try not to, right? Make sure that you can negotiate out what you want. And so why would anyone ever really end a personal relationship of any kind? One, it's abusive,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
But even then, that doesn't have to be either permanent or the first resort, right? Most
mhm,
abusive instances, maybe not all, but most abusive instances, you could set up boundaries about what you're allowed and what you're not allowed to say to me and do to me and all of that kind of thing, and
Mhm.
leave the door open for that person to have the relationship with you that they want, depending on
Mhm.
the degree to which they're willing to observe those boundaries. I think so. So why would you ever really end a personal relationship? One, it's abusive. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Two, you just have some kind of massive value conflict that
Mhm.
you know you can't move forward with this relationship in life. So,
I think sometimes people just grow in other directions, right? And I've also had the circumstance raising children. You may have had this too, where when you have an active kid schedule, people that don't have kids don't have time for your, oh, I can't because I have to get soccer pool. I'm driving soccer
Mhm.
carpool, so I can't meet you because so and so's mom today is out sick. And so, if you have a time of life where there's a lot of activity, or you used to be able to do the weekend softball or be part of the dart league, but now you're working two jobs because you're trying to get out of debt and you don't have time for that anymore. So if you only see each other at dart league and you never go to dart league anymore, you're not really staying in tune with the friendship. So I think sometimes there's a natural parting that can happen. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't think that's like a super bestie because you would
Right.
stay in touch other ways. Well, good. I'll bring the steaks. We'll have barbecue on Sunday then. They would you'd find another way to meet, but
Sure.
um,
Yeah, casual relationships are one thing.
mhm.
I'm kind of talking about, but normally in casual relationships, you don't say goodbye. You just don't see the person again, right?
I say
Um,
goodbye.
the in terms of like actual, like I said, if you're gonna break up with someone because of massive value conflicts,
Mhm.
um, or abuse, I think to break up with someone without very honest negotiations,
Mhm.
trying to um, be very honest about what's not working for you and making good faith effort to resolve that, I think
Mhm.
that's probably a bad idea. In that
Mhm.
in that in life, we often have a lot of people in our culture have the idea that there will always be like an infinite number of potential partners, but
Mhm.
there aren't. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you just want to be very careful about throwing those away lightly.
Mhm.
And if you can't negotiate out honestly what you want, then you're just going to end up throwing them away lightly, like I said. But if you negotiate honestly and there's literally no way to resolve it,
Mhm.
then that might be a place to say goodbye in the sense that we're not going to date each other. I mean, we
Mhm.
may bump into each other on
Mhm.
Facebook or whatever once in a while,
Mhm.
but there's a clearly established reason.
Mhm.
And many, many breakups in our culture, I just think happen because without a clearly established reason, or at least one that no one's willing to be honest about. And if that's the case, I really think the most compassionate thing a person can say is, I'm leaving you because I found a better offer.
Mhm.
And I found somebody I like more.
Or
That's me.
it's not working for me. It was, and now it's not. And I may not even have a way to describe why not. But I
Well,
think you're bored and I'm bored. I think we could both agree we're not going anywhere. How long do we want to tread water together?
that's a
And
negotiation thing. Right
right.
now,
So
let's
we're treading water. So yeah, let's decide not to tread water anymore. So
right. And the way you don't tread water first is by negotiating honestly about what's happening. Mm.
yeah. And I
Uh,
really think honesty, as you underscore, is that key component about and I think, a person who's responded to feels valuable with the time that's been spent. If whether it's friendship or whether it's a work colleague or whatever it is, that there was a parting of some kind. And I know some people are a fan of the Irish goodbye, so I think it has its place also. So I think sometimes relationships become asymmetric for some reason. Someone's investing a lot more than another one. And so, yeah, having to realign those things, if they can be realigned, is, I think, the first effort.
mhm.
Um, But I don't know, Jonathan, do you have some final thoughts too about the art of saying goodbye?
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to say like the Irish. I like the Irish goodbye thing. Sometimes you don't
Jonathan
have to
leave.
say goodbye for like forever, for example. You know,
Mhm,
it might be a organic, natural, like
mhm,
healthy
mhm,
goodbye, but
mhm,
there's always a hello, you know.
mhm,
Like, it
mhm,
doesn't mean like that comes for like the organic situations, like the ones like you organically depart, there was
mhm.
no conflict or something. You say, hey,
Right,
goodbye, I'll see
right.
you. But
Mhm,
if we meet again, who knows? Maybe the kids go back in high school together because, or
mhm,
like college, they might
mhm,
go to college together or something,
mhm,
and
mhm,
they may end up, together. Now, another thing before I forget, it was to the point of Dean, which is it's true. Like relationships right now, instant gratification, it's a killer of relationships
mhm,
because we
mhm,
wanted everything like my way. Like
mhm,
I want it my way, and if you don't do it my way, you don't love me. Therefore, uh,
mhm,
I'm out.
mhm.
And you're not going to find that unless you go to heaven and you have a perfect angel there waiting for you. You're not going to find that here on this planet.
It's not
It
an order
doesn't.
of services. It's not a personal butler or maid. Yeah, I mean,
It,
it's another organic human being. Yeah, and there needs to be some mutual meeting of needs, whatever
yeah.
that looks like. Yeah.
Yes. So understanding like
Hmm.
as a person that regardless of the relationship, y- you're gonna have some friction
Hmm.
that you can lubricate. So like there's no, it's like an engine kind of like
Hmm.
you need the other part of it to work, right? But you can lubricate it. So it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be friction, but you can lubricate the relationship. And that means to the point where Dean was talking about,
Hmm.
it's true. You have to give and take. Yeah.
Hmm.
And coming from your like your inner um, most valuable
Hmm.
um, ideals, I would say, it will help you along the way because and then it becomes very easy, to spend time with someone and it's actually worth it because you
Hmm.
know that you're doing it because you love them, not
Hmm.
because you're expecting anything in return. If you get something in return, it feels good. But if you don't, understanding that reg- it doesn't matter who you choose, even the most beautiful woman on the planet and the most handsome man on the planet, uh, movie stars, they have those kinds of things,
Hmm.
of issues. You see it time and
Hmm.
time again. They cannot keep up. It's rare when it happens.
Hmm.
Why? Because also when you this nowadays the illusion of I have so many options,
Hmm.
that's it's also an illusion because even if you do all of them, if you spend some time with every single one of them, you will realize that you will still have to
Hmm.
give and take. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it is very important to understand that part.
Well, let's look at our memes real fast and then we will tell people how to get a hold of you. Okay, here we go. Okay, in the art of saying goodbye to the top left here. Remember when breaking up was easy? Nowadays, you got to press charges and move.
Oof.
Underneath, you're the coworker I'll miss texting from a few feet away the most. Over here on the top right, the person you are trying to reach is emotionally unavailable at this time. Please try again later. You do find people say, I just can't handle this right now. Like they are not prepared to handle a honest or tough conversation or something that has a strong emotional weight to it. It's like, no, I can't do that. The last part, cause part of me wants my best friend back, but the other part knows I'm better off alone. So, yeah, sometimes you have these conversations between friends after a breakup. Don't go back. We know you're sad and lonely. Don't go back. We have to remind you that they did this and this, and these were the reasons you broke up, and they were valid reasons, So don't go back. But yeah, I think there's some regret sometimes, even after you've made that move. So I think if you make an investment and you're honest about your expectations and, about sometimes just people who've been married 5 or 10 years, they've stopped making the effort for each other.
Mhm.
They're walking the dog and they're, feeding the cat, and they're taking the kids to school and barely get in bed by 10 o'clock and they're exhausted. And so, there is whatever kind of relationship, a friendship, a workplace, colleague, a romantic relationship, both people have to make an effort, from time to time because there's, work in staying related to each other. So, Dean, how do people get a hold of you?
DeanAbbott.com, lifedesign.org/Dean, and on Twitter at Dean Abbott.
Yay, good. How about for you, Jonathan?
Uh, yeah, just one more thought
Yes,
before I
yes.
forget. If somebody doesn't want to like be your friend no more because of your political views,
Mhm.
you should be making a party and like be very joyful and grateful to whatever
Have a
got you
cupcake
grateful.
and say
Yes,
adios.
make sure you have make a party and tag me on
Yeah, there we go. Tag Jonathan is like, yeah, political differences.
You can find me on a livedesign.org.
Mhm,
Also, Jonathan R. Coaching on Instagram and
mhm,
via email at jonathanrcoaching@gmail.com.
mhm.
Also, YouTube, Jonathan R. Coaching.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, you guys, for your wonderful perspectives about the art of saying goodbye. Coaching can help you if you're not sure how to say something. There's probably some self-reflection that needs to be involved in some assessment about where you are, but we can help. Thanks. It was good to see you guys. Until
Thank
next
you.
time.